7 minutes after midnight. The dog was lying on the grass in the middle of the lawn in front of Mrs. Shear's house. Its eyes were closed. It looked as if it was running on its side, the way dogs run when they think they are chasing a cat in a dream. But the dog was not running or asleep. The dog was dead. There was a garden fork sticking out of the dog. The points of the fork must have gone all the way through the dog and into the ground because the fork had not fallen over. I decided the dog was probably killed with the garden fork because I could not see any other wounds on the dog, and I don't think you would stick a garden fork inside of a dog after it had died for some other reason, like cancer, for example, or a road accident, but I could not be certain about this. The dog was called Wellington. It belonged to Mrs. Shears, who was our friend. She lived on the opposite side of the road, 2 houses to the left. My name is Christopher John Francis Boone. I know all the countries in the world and the capital cities and every prime number up to 7,057. When I first met Siobhan, she showed me this picture. And I knew that it meant sad, which is how I felt when I found the dead dog. And then she showed me this picture. And I knew that it meant happy. Which is how I felt when I thought about the Apollo space missions. Or when I was still awake at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. in the morning, and I could walk up and down the streets and pretend I'm the only person in the world. And then she showed me some other pictures. But I was unable to say what these meant. I asked Siobhan to draw lots of these faces and write down next to them exactly what they meant. I kept the piece of paper in my pocket and took it out whenever I didn't understand what someone was saying. But it was hard to decide which of the diagrams was most like the face that someone was making, because people's faces move very quickly. When I told Siobhan that I was doing this, she said it probably made people feel very... And then she laughed. So I tore the original piece of paper up and I threw it away. And Siobhan apologized. And now if I don't know what someone is saying, I ask them what they need or I walk away. When I was little, I didn't understand about other people having minds. But I don't find this difficult now, because I decided that it was kind of like a puzzle. And if it's like a puzzle, there's always a way of solving it. It's like computers. People think they're different from computers because people have minds, even though in the Turing test, computers were able to have conversations with people about the weather and wine and what Italy is like, and they could even tell jokes. But the mind is just a complicated machine. And when we look at things, we think we're looking at little windows and there's a person inside of our heads, but we're not. We're looking at a screen inside of our heads, like a computer screen. And you can tell this because of an experiment in which I saw on TV from a television series called How the Mind Works. And in this experiment, you put your head in a clamp and you look at a page of writing on a screen. And it looks like a normal page of writing and nothing is changing. But after a while, as your eyes move around the page, you realize that something is very strange. Because if you try to read a bit of the page you've read before, it's different. And this is because when your eyes flick from one point to another, you can't see anything at all and you're blind. And the flicks are called saccades. Because if you saw everything at once when your eyes moved from one point to another, you'd feel giddy. Also, in this experiment, there's a sensor in which tells when your eyes are moving from one point to another, and what it's doing then is it's changing some of the words on the page in a place where you're not looking. But you don't notice that you're blind during saccades because your brain fills in the screen in your head and makes it seem like you're looking at little windows in your head. And you don't notice that some of the words have changed on another part of the page because your brain fills in the picture of things that you're not looking at that moment. Also, people think they're not like computers because they have feelings and computers don't have feelings. But having feelings is just having a picture inside of your head of what is going to happen tomorrow or next year or what might have happened instead of what did happen. And if it's a happy picture, they smile, and if it's a sad picture, they cry. I sat on the bed and looked at my knees. I tried tumbling twos in my head because it made me feel a lot calmer. I got to 33,554,432, which is 2 to the 25th power, which wasn't very much because I got into 2 to the 45th power before, but my brain wasn't working very well. Then Father came into my room and said,
"How are you feeling? Can I get you anything?"
I didn't say anything. I carried on looking at my knees. And Father didn't say anything either. He just sat down next to me and put his elbows on his knees and looked out at the carpet between his legs, where there was a little piece of red Lego with H novels on it. Then Father said,
"Look, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I want you to know that you can trust me. And, okay, maybe I don't tell the truth all the time. God knows I try, Christopher. God knows I do. Life is difficult, you know? It's bloody hard telling the truth all the time. Sometimes it's impossible. And I want you to know that I'm trying. I really am. Perhaps this is not a very good time to say this, and I know you're not going to like it, but you need to know that I'm going to tell you the truth from now on. About everything. Because if you don't tell the truth now, then later on it hurts even more, so..."
Father rubbed his face with his hands and pulled his chin down with his fingers and stared at the wall. I could see him out of the corner of my eye. And then he said,
"I killed Wellington, Christopher."
And I wondered if this was a joke, because I don't understand jokes, and when people say jokes, they don't really mean what they say. But then he said,
"Please, Christopher, just let me explain."
And he sucked in some air and said,
"When your mother left, Aileen, Mrs. Shears, she was very good to us. Very good to me. She helped me through a very difficult time. I'm not sure if I would have made it without her. Well, you know how she was around here most days. Helping out with the cooking and the cleaning. Popping over to see if we were okay, if we needed anything. I thought, shoot, Christopher, I'm trying to keep this simple. I thought she might carry on coming over. I thought maybe I was being stupid. I thought she might eventually want to move in here. Or that we might move in with her. We got on really, really well. I thought we were friends. And I guess I thought wrong. I guess, in the end, it comes down to, shoot. We argued, Christopher. And she said some things I'm not going to say to you because they're not nice, but they hurt. But I think she cared more for that bloody dog than she did for you. For me. Maybe that's not so stupid looking back. Maybe we are a bloody handful. I mean, shoot, buddy, we're not exactly low maintenance, are we? Anyway, we had this row. Quite a few rows, to be honest. But after this particularly nasty blowout, she chucked me out of the house. And you know what that dog was like after the operation? Bloody schizophrenic. Nice as pie one moment, roll over, tickle its stomach. Sink its teeth into your leg the next. Anyway, we're yelling at each other and it's in the garden relieving itself. So when she slams the door behind me, the bug is waiting for me. And I know, maybe if I'd just given it a kick, it probably would have backed off. But shoot, Christopher, when the red mist comes down. Chris, you know how it is. I mean, we're not that different. Me and you. And all I could think about was that she cared more for this bloody dog than she did for you or me. And it was like everything I'd been bottling up for 2 years just...
Then Father was silent for a bit. And then he said,
I'm sorry, Christopher. I promise you, I never meant for it to turn out like this.
Then I knew it wasn't a joke, and I was really frightened. I tried doubling 2's again, but I couldn't get past 2 to the 15th power, which is 32,768. So I just continued to groan and rock backwards and forwards to pass the time. The next day, Seaborn said that she had spoken to Mrs. Gascoigne, and she still had my A-level papers and 3 sealed envelopes on her desk. So I asked if I could do my A-level, and she said,
I think so. We're going to the Reverend Peters this afternoon to make sure he can still come in and be your invigilator. And Miss Gascoigne is going to send a letter to the examination board to say that you're going to take the exam after all. And hopefully they'll say that that's okay. But we can't know for sure.
Then she stopped talking for a few seconds. And then she said,
I just thought I should tell you now, so you could think about it.
And I said, so I could think about what? And then she said,
Is this what you want to do, Christopher?
and I thought about the question because I didn't know what the answer was. Because I wanted to do my maths A-level, but I was very tired, and when I tried to remember certain facts, like the logarithmic formula of the approximate number of prime numbers no greater than x, I couldn't remember them, and this made me frightened. But then Seaborn said,
You don't have to do it, Christopher. If you say you don't want to do it now, no one is going to be angry with you. And it won't be wrong, or illegal, or stupid. It will just be what you want. And that will be fine.
and I said that I want to do it, because I don't like when I put things in my timetable and I have to take them out because it makes me feel sick. Then Seaborn said, okay. Then she rang the Reverend Peters, and he arrived at school at 3:27 p.m, and he said,
So, young man, are we ready to roll?
I did paper 1 of my marks A-level sitting in the art room, and the Reverend Peters read The Cost of Discipleship by Dietrich Bonhoeffer and ate a sandwich. And in the middle of the exam, he went outside and smoked a cigarette, but he looked inside the window in case I'd cheated. But when I looked at paper 1 of my maths A-level, I didn't know how to answer any of the questions. And also, I couldn't breathe properly. And I wanted to hit somebody or stab them with my Swiss Army knife, but the only person to hit or stab with my Swiss Army knife was the Reverend Peters, and he was very tall. And if I hit him or stabbed him with my Swiss Army knife, he wouldn't be my invigilator for the rest of the exam. So I just started breathing like Seaborn said I should when I want to hit somebody in school. I counted up to 50 breaths and did the cubes of the cardinal numbers like this. 1,
8,
27,
64,
125,
216,
343,
512,
729,
1,000,
1,331.
1,728,
2,197,
2,744,
3,375,
4,096.
4,913.
etc. And it was a little easier to breathe. But the exam was 2 hours long, and 20 minutes had already passed, so I had to work very quickly, and I didn't have time to check my answers properly. And that night, I studied for the maths A-level, and I had spinach soup for supper. The next day, I did paper 2 of my maths A-level. And this time, the Reverend Peters read The Cost of Discipleship by Dietrich Bonhoeffer, but this time he didn't smoke a cigarette. And Seaborn said that I should go to the toilets before the exam and sit on my own and do breathing and counting. Then the next day, I did paper 3 of my Maths A level. And this time, the Reverend Peters read the Daily Mail and smoked 3 cigarettes. And this was my favorite question. Prove the following result. A triangle with sides that can be written in the form of n squared plus 1, n squared minus 1, and 2n, where n is greater than 1, is right-angled. Prove, by means of counterexample, that the converse is false. Then my chest didn't hurt so much, and it was a lot easier to breathe. But I still felt sick because I didn't know if I did well on the exam, and I didn't know if the examination board would allow my test to be considered after Mrs. Gascoigne told them that I wasn't going to take it. And I didn't like waiting to find out about my results. And when I tried to think about the future, I couldn't see anything clearly, and this caused a panic start. That Seabold said that I shouldn't think about the future. She said,
just think about today. Think about everything that has happened, especially good things.
And one of those good things was that I got a puzzle which looked like this. And you had to pull the 2 pieces apart, and it was very difficult. But I figured out that there were two bolts inside of the puzzle that were tunnels with metal rods inside of them, like this. And you had to hold the puzzle so that the metal rods fell to the end of the tunnels and they weren't blocking the intersection between the 2 pieces, and you could pull them apart. Then I got the results of my Maths A level. And I got an A grade, which is the best result. So it made me feel like this. I was going to take A level further maths next year. And I'm going to pass it and get an A grade. And in 2 years' time, I'm going to take A level physics and I will get an A grade. And I will go to a university in another town. And it doesn't have to be London because I don't like London. And there are lots of universities in lots of places, and not all of them are in big cities. And I can have my own flat with a garden and a proper toilet, and I can bring my books and my computer. And I will get a first-class honors degree and become a scientist. And I know that I can do this because I solved the mystery of who killed Wellington. And I was brave. And I passed my A level, which means that I can do anything.